Course title: Arguing About Literature. Lecturer: Sammy Babak. Source: Johns Chilb, John Clifford, A Brief Guide to Arguing About Literature, 2nd edition. Thank you for your attendance. Don't forget to like and share the video. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell for more content to come. Writing about short stories. 1. Introduction. Write in the setting of argumentative writing, and in this particular section of our advanced writing course, we focus on elements of literary analysis for the genres of poetry and fiction, particularly short stories, showing how these elements can be used to generate writing about literary works. You will notice that many of these elements are useful in thinking about most genres, but different genres make different use of elements, emphasizing some more than others. For example, poetry focuses more on sound devices, whereas fiction focuses more on characters. We also devote a section to pairing different genres, for example writing about poems and pictures. Over the centuries, many poets have been prompted to create their art in response to visual images created by other kinds of artists. Other pairings are also possible, for example, joining a song and poem, a short story and poem, etc. As far as this lesson is concerned, we will discuss writing about stories short. Stories can be said to resemble novels. Above all, both are works of fiction. Yet the difference in length matters. As William Trevor, a veteran writer of short stories, has observed, short fiction is the art of the glimpse. It deals in echoes and reverberations. Craftily it withholds information. Novels tell all. Short stories tell as little as they dare. Maybe Trevor overstates the situation when he claims that novels reveal everything. All sorts of texts feature what literary theorist Wolfgang Iser calls gaps. These gaps create effects of beauty, mystery, suspense, ambiguity, etc. Still, Trevor is right to emphasize that short stories usually tell much less than novels do. They demand that you understand and evaluate characters on the basis of just a few details and events. In this respect, short stories resemble poems. Both tend to rely on compression rather than expansion, seeking to affect their audience with a sharply limited number of words. Short stories' focused use of language can make the experience of reading them wonderfully intense. Furthermore, you may end up considering important human issues as you try to interpret the glimpses they provide. Precisely because short stories tell as little as they dare, they offer you much to ponder as you proceed to write about them. In discussing the writing process, we refer often to a story published in 1941, A Visit of Charity, by a pioneer of American short fiction, Eudora Welty. She spent her life chiefly in her hometown of Jackson, Mississippi, and most of her writing is set in the American South. 2. Arguing About Literature, a review of the essentials. Human beings differ in how they perceive and interpret the world around them. As a writer yourself, you will enter debates and have to defend your stands. However, requiring higher-order thinking skills, no one naturally excels at this type of arguing, I mean arguing about works of literature. It takes a lot of practice. In other words, it requires time, effort and perseverance. So, to become skilled in this art, you have to engage in a series of opportunities that combine close reading, critical thinking, and writing. Works of literature don't deliver simple, straightforward messages. They offer puzzles, complications, metaphors, symbols, and mysteries. In short, they stress life's complexity. As you read the text, you must figure out various features of it. Other readers may not see the text as you do. So, next you will need to argue for your view. Often you will do this by regularly composing essays and perhaps, as I have advised you to do, use online posts. I need to remind here again about the 4 elements every writer needs to consider before engaging in textual analysis, that is, subject or the particular topic you choose. Audience or the main readers, listeners, or viewers you decide to address. Purpose or the effect you want to achieve. Style or possible channels for the text. 3. The elements of argument. Within the field of rhetoric, arguments are a more specific category. When you argue, you attempt to persuade an audience to accept your claims regarding an issue. To achieve this aim, you present evidence, explain your reasoning, rely on assumptions, and make other kinds of appeals. Hereafter, we briefly explain these elements. A issue. An issue is a question not yet settled. When you write an argument, readers should find your main issue significant. Sometimes they will immediately see its value. But often you will need to explain what's at stake. B. Claim. A claim is a statement that is spoken or written so that people will think it true. But claims may conflict with other claims. We have defined an issue as a question with various debatable answers. Claims, as we use the term, are the debatable answers. See persuasion. You argue in the first place because you want others to accept your claims. To attempt persuasion is to concede that your claims need defense. You will have to justify your stance. Realistically, persuasion doesn't mean everyone eventually agrees with you.
An argument you write may leave some readers maintaining another view. But you've done much if they conclude that your ideas are credible, worth their bearing in mind. The audience. This task of arguing requires you to consider more than your subject. You must take your readers into account. You may have to guess what your target group knows, assumes, and values. Evidence. Evidence is support you give your claims so others will accept them. What sort of evidence must it be? Well, that depends on what your audience expects. Disciplines differ in this respect. In literary studies, claims about a text seem more plausible if they're backed by quotations from it. Reasoning. Facts alone are necessary, but not sufficient for a good argument. Of equal importance is getting the right facts is putting the facts into a comprehensible logical structure that supports your conclusion. When you write an argument, guide your audience step by step through your reasoning. Help them follow your logic. Make your essay seem an orderly train of thought. Key assumptions. Assumptions behind an argument may be numerous and debatable. One category is beliefs about the audience's experiences. For example, if you write, "When in Paris," you assume that your readers have visited Paris. Another type of assumption concerns the writer's values. For example, if you criticize city's loss of uniqueness, you are assuming the uniqueness is a virtue.
A third type is what rhetorical theory calls warrants. This term refers to the writer's beliefs about what can serve as evidence. For example, you may assume that a personal story is a good evidence to back up your claim. However, we can imagine readers skeptical about these premises. For example, how low-wage workers will react to your reference to Paris. Others may believe that uniqueness isn't always a benefit. Similarly, for some of your audience, a personal story may lack weight. Therefore, as author, you must decide which of your assumptions are safe or trivial, and which, if any, you have to state and defend. So, when you write an argument, try to identify its assumptions. Since some of our hidden or implicit assumptions can influence the quality of our arguments, detecting them is not always easy. You may need to have friends and classmates read each of your drafts. But the effort pays. Growing alert to a premise helps you anticipate challenges to it. You can then revise to head off these criticisms. Appeals. To make their arguments persuasive, writers employ three basic kinds of appeals. Rhetorical theory calls them logos, ethos, and pathos, terms drawn from ancient Greek. In practice, they don't always play equal roles. An argument may depend on one or two of these strategies, not the entire trio. But all three are potential resources. Number one, and the most common type of appeal, is logos. The term refers to the logical substance of an arguer's case. Number two, ethos, refers to the image you project as an author. Actually, there are two types of ethos. One is your audience's image of you before you present your analysis. It's your prior reputation, in case you are a famous figure or writer. The second kind of ethos, the picture of you that people form as they read your text. To gain the reader's trust, you should patiently lay out your claims, reasons, and evidence. Writers enhance their ethos through concessions and qualifications. Concessions are civil, or even kind or admiring, acknowledgments of views or experiences other than yours. In rhetorical theory, qualifications two kinds of words. Says differently, how do you qualify your words as an author? One kind helps writers strengthen their claims, such as the word very. The second kind of qualification has the opposite effect. Words in this category weaken a claim. They help writers sound cautious, often an attractive trait. Examples: places are unique, or at least we like to believe they are. Observe the effect created by the word at least here. Almost every person instead of every person. It can be instead of it is. Similar terms include probably, maybe, perhaps, and possibly. These words suggest that the writer isn't self-righteously certain. In academic writing, we call this hedging. The third type of appeals is pathos, which means an appeal to the heart. Pathos targets its audience's emotions. When you write such arguments, you push readers to feel the stakes of your issue. You hope they will passionately favor your claims. Plenty of subjects even demand an emotional tone. Further, pathos can join logos and ethos. Arguments that move readers may also awe them with logic. The author's image may impress them, too. For writing a response to an argument. To write about an argument thoughtfully, read it several times. You may need to study it at length before you detect its points. Here, We suggest some strategies for analyzing and getting ideas to respond to arguments. 1. Identify all of the argument's basic elements. After you've examined the argument thoroughly, pinpoint not just its main claim and smaller claims but also its evidence, its reasoning, its assumptions, its appeals, and the audience it seems to address. 2. Map the argument's path. By this, we mean you should try to outline the argument's stages, noting points made at each. Just as important, recognize choices the arguer faced. For each stage, identify issues he or she doesn't pursue. To construct your map, you might use only words or a flowchart. 3. Identify the values the argument honors. Often arguers support a claim by tying it to common values. These are principles they assume their audience already holds. Here are examples of such values. Morality. Realism. Most people find it crucial to remain in touch with reality. Shared sacrifice. Family. Bonds of responsibility or sense of community. The principle of looking out for one another. It's a tradition some people wish to sustain. Prudence. Or the exercise of careful, cautious judgment. Attitude of seriousness with issues of high importance. In general, consider what values an argument gives priority to. Often arguers press their audience to choose between values it holds. 4. Identify words in the argument that can have more than one definition. You can also grasp an argument better if you pinpoint words in it that can have more than one definition. Concepts may be perceived differently by different people. For example, the word morality may have multiple definitions. Well, in this first video, we had a general review of argument elements. In the next video, we will focus on how to argue about literature. Course title: Arguing About Literature. Lecturer: Sami Babak. Source: John's Chilb and John Clifford, A Brief Guide to Arguing About Literature, 2nd edition. Thank you for your attendance. Don't forget to like and share the video.